Welcome to Green Hills Shadow Chapter 12 to accept what is now. Another morning dawned into the Wachowski household, with Tom getting cereal out instead of the usual fry-up. Let Shadow try it for the first time since he's been there. He and Maddie were definitely not up for cooking as both of them waited till the boys went to bed, and maybe had a freak-out conversation about Shadow's past. Ju, after all, were willing to play the waiting game with Rachel. So their imaginations ran wild and they really didn't want Shadow to confirm any of them. They're tired after all that. Knuckles was out as usual with his morning patrol, and said hello to the mailman before declaring he is teaching Ozzy to best him. A mighty gladiator dog he is becoming, and Tom had to hurriedly go out to the worried but amused mailman because they both knew Knuckles meant it. Maddie popped her head up the attic to see the all three remaining sapients fast asleep still. As Tom said, Shadow seemed to be happy to sleep without covers, preferring the blanket instead. So he used the cover as a extra padding for the mattress at this rate. She called out their names to let them know it is time for breakfast. Hearing a few unintelligible groans and grumbles, she headed back down the stairs for her own cereal. Shadow still could only eat between 1 or 2 meals a day, but he's improving. Small portions have helped him, and he did look like he gained a slight bit of weight, but still early days. Knuckles eventually came back in after waving the mailman away, and Tom was out of breath from running to prevent any gladiator mishaps. Typical morning for the Wachowskis, especially with the blue grumpy hedgehog being sluggish on his way down the stairs. It didn't take long for Shadow to join, who was in a discussion with Tails over something. Sonic looked to be done already. Shadow took a small bowl of cornflakes, quite happy without the sugar stuff like the Frosty Sonic took, with Tails happy with Weetabix as well as Knuckles.
Father, Mother, I have a request,
Knuckles declared, eating a piece of his Weetabix, causing Tom to pause and give him a curious glance. Both of them nodded for the echidna to continue.
I request you take the 3rd week of May that we are heading into off the Wednesday. It is a special occasion.
How so, Cranberry?
Maddie sipped her morning coffee, enjoying the caffeine.
It is to visit my birth father's grave.
Kitchen went deathly silent. Apart from Shadow, who munched away, not at all fazed by the announcement and did not pick up on the glares Sonic was throwing him.
I wish to honor his name day by letting him meet my new tribe. You see, he wanted me to find and cherish people, and so I have. Would that be acceptable?
Yeah, but of course. We'd love to. I'll ask someone to cover me.
Tom snuck a concerned glance at Maddie and vice versa. It was Sonic they were worried about, considering the two boys' past.
I'll ask someone too, they'd understand.
Maddie nodded, giving Sonic a quick but assuring glance.
My brother of blue. Would you be comfortable in meeting him? You have the right to say no, if you aren't. I do not wish to put you in an uncomfortable position.
Knuckles suddenly put attention on the blue hedgehog, who choked on his own drink. Sonic swallowed hard and hit his chest a few times to get the liquid down.
You want me there?
Yes, you are my brother. Just like the fox is.
Knuckles pointed out. But Sonic's ears went back somewhat, making the echidna realize he likely put his foot in it.
Didn't Longclaw and him?
He muttered out, and Knuckles' eyes went wide, as did Tails, looking in between both of them. Shadow did not bother to hide his own curiosity from what he was witnessing.
No, brother. I assure you, my father fell to another.
Another? Sonic blinked, but his brain caught up, the way the echidna said it. As if he saw it.
You saw him die?
He nearly cried out in alarm when Knuckles nodded in affirmation, causing both Maddie and Tom to freeze in their own action. Tom's spoon hitting the bowl with a large clink, and Maddie paused in her coffee addiction.
Yes, I also buried him. I told you this.
You said you buried your tribe. You didn't say you saw him die.
Sonic cried out in distress. Tails' ears pinned back, not at all interested in finishing his food.
Yeah, I'm done with breakfast,
he muttered out, pushing the bowl away. Knuckles realized he worded it all quite poorly. His muzzle had a heated look to it, and he rubbed his temple. Shadow, though, could be counted upon.
You all like to have chaotic mornings, don't you?
He mused, earning a lot of disbelief looks upon everyone's face, apart from Knuckles, who had to snort from the irony.
What?
Knuckles,
Yes, I am very well aware I chose the wrong time to bring it up.
what do you mean by that?
Guys, I am not having a fight this early in the morning, yet again.
Shadow kept munching away at the cereal Sonic snapped.
Will you stop that?
He hissed and Shadow just gave him the side eye. And munched again loud enough to bother the blue hedgehog and his mouth fell open at the nerve of him.
What? I am merely eating the breakfast your father and mother prepared.
Don't you get smart with me, trying to hit me with another technicality.
Tom felt like slapping his own forehead at the teenage shenanigans that were happening currently, while digesting the fact Knuckles saw his own father die. Why couldn't things be normal for the sheriff and Maddie?
Knuckles, we are talking about this later tonight.
Tom stated, earning a puzzled expression from the echidna. Maddie though stood up, her chair squeaking across the floor in warning, and the two bickering hedgehogs quieted down. Sonic grumbled out and banged his fist lightly against the counter, huffing.
Stupid black hedgehog.
Baka.
He growled out himself and Sonic whipped his head around, ready to cause World War III. Knuckles pinched his nose and let out a huge sigh.
I caused this. I apologize, Mother.
No, you did not. I'm about to have two grounded morons. Sonic, Knuckles asked something really personal, so please answer him, and Shadow, don't rile him up. I mean it, mister.
What? He started it. All I did was eat.
Tom covered his face with his hands, not believing an innocent question transpired into this chaotic mess. Knuckles rubbed his neck uncomfortably.
It is all right, brother. I should not have asked. I apologize.
Sonic saw the guilt on the echidna's face and he took a deep breath. Knuckles lost people just like he did. It's not fair to hold it against him, and he knows they've both came a long way with each other. As Knuckles said, their parents' war is behind them. It's not theirs. He is willing to let it go. He feels honored Knuckles would think of him, but at the same time it would be extremely uncomfortable, considering what happened. But he felt something wash over him and he blinked. It felt like a warm blanket trying to ease his uneasiness. Trying to parent him almost. And Sonic felt his annoyance melt away.
No, I get it. I'm uncomfortable. But that doesn't mean it'll stop me from doing something important to you like you tend to do with me.
Knuckles regarded him with surprise, so Sonic gave him a small thumbs up.
I'll meet him, Knux. Brothers forever, aren't we?
The echidna chuckled and reached out, taking his shoulder with his mitt.
Yes, that we are. I am most pleased and honored for him to meet my new tribe,
He said with great enthusiasm, and Sonic wearily chuckled. He really hopes he doesn't regret this. He could just feel the need to dig a hole and not come back out of it. Tails decided to go to the library later that afternoon, wanting to take Shadow, but unfortunately too many humans. The black hedgehog quickly changed his mind once he found that out. So Sonic decided to take the black sapient into the wilderness, while Knuckles went with the fox to the library. Tails was tempted to get Shadow a library card, but that required ID, and well, it would inform the person who works there about him, which would not have been ideal currently. Green Hills was safe, but Shadow still wasn't going to be exactly good around humans. He's only just adjusting to his parents and of course Wade. Knuckles picked up a book called Watership Down and was quite taken with the idea of sentient rabbits, reminding him of the ones back on Mobius. Tails, on the other hand, was on a mission. He searched high and low at the history section about planes and got to work comparing his notes. The librarian could see, or rather feel, the fox's crazy energy output and smartly steered clear of him, as did the other residents currently dwelling in the vicinity. Knuckles waited roughly 20 minutes before the kit let out an annoyed scream and flopped his head against the pile of books he had currently on the table, waving the invisible white flag in surrender, and he gave him a look of concern.
Brother?
Knuckles called out, only for the fox to give him a crazy eye twitch, making the echidna pause in concern.
I can't find it.
He cried out, earning a shush from the librarian, who quickly backtracked after receiving deadly glares from the genius fox.
You can't find what?
The echidna asked, picking up his books and putting them back on the shelf to tidy the section best he could.
The airplane he mentioned. Like Sonic says, it could be in a black and white photograph for all I know.
He wildly gestured to his notes and felt like pulling his fur out.
What did he say it was?
A white and black airplane, black tip nose and wings. Odd shape. I honestly can't find this. It's not a commercial airline, I've checked. I may have to use Google. I have been defeated.
But to his surprise, a Green Hill resident piped up after seeing the fox's frantic behavior. That sounds like a space shuttle. Both sapients paused and looked to the middle-aged female human. She had brown hair and brown eyes, Tails with a wild gleam in his eye, worrying the speaker.
A space shuttle?
Yeah, you know, for space travel. Like the landing of the moon, things like that. The middle-aged woman pointed out. It's common for them to have what you describe, so you better check the space section rather than airplane 1. Well, Tails never moved so fast. He zipped to the section the human referred to, startling Knuckles. The echidna quickly thanked the woman who waved him off, going back to her business, and he followed his brother in succession, who wildly fumbled about the books for the history on space station, NASA and space travel. He certainly was beginning to look like a mad scientist with the way his fur bristled out in all ends, his two tails much the same, flicking up and down with excitement. He found one such book about NASA, and opened it and flipped a few pages, in hopes of finding something even remotely close to what Shadow described to him. And his eyes widened with glee. Right there on a page was the white and black shuttle with the nose pointed black and the wings too. The shape was identical to the way the black sapient said to him nearly 2 weeks ago. His treasure hunt has come to an end. He found the airplane Shadow mentioned seeing. His descent into madness is done. But that just raises even further questions. When and how did Shadow see one of these shuttles, if he was kept as a captive by Juen? It was almost never-ending, the questions of Shadow's past. It was like the list was never going to stop with him. At least he's semi-opening up more, but how does one bring up his tragic past? Knuckles came over to stare at the picture Tails was currently looking at.
So this is what you were looking for, brother?
Shadow says he's seen a craft just like this one, but how? Knuckles, he's an enigma. My list just never seems to end. I want to ask him, but I don't want to look like I'm interrogating him. That's not fair of me.
Knuckles hummed and ruffled his head gently.
Then make it a gradual build-up. He has told us about his sister after all. One day he perhaps will go into more detail about his past. He just needs to realize Green Hills is now his new home. Why do you not borrow this book and they'll make a bonding experience? See if that is the correct craft and we can start from there.
Tails closed the book, fully intending to check the book out and read it. Knuckles is right. Perhaps making a bonding day with Shadow with just the two of them may prove fruitful. It still plagues his mind though. How does Shadow know what a shuttle looks like?
Do you think you'd ever see more of Green Hills?
Sonic sped around the black hedgehog, who was more than happy just to walk around the forest, much to the blue hedgehog's displeasure. Shadow grunted. His ears twitched listening to the cicadas, and was on the hunt for a cicada shell.
Maybe. I just don't know how humans will take to me here.
They've taken to us so far?
Sonic zipped and caused the leaves to fly into Shadow's quills, who did not look all that happy, especially when he was in the middle of trying to find a shell.
Will you stop that? I'm trying to find a cicada shell. Wouldn't they pester me with questions? Knuckles said they didn't leave him or Tails alone the first few weeks whenever they went out to the food store with your parents.
Sonic did stop zipping around after hearing that. It was the attention Shadow didn't want, the curious gazes, the unrelenting questions that the blue hedgehog went through when he finally walked amongst them. It didn't bother Sonic per se, because most of Green Hills was respectable and people respected his parents, so if Shadow didn't want to talk he didn't have to.
You don't have to answer anything, you could just ignore. Green Hills is pretty respectable.
Shadow bent down to the floor to see if he could see any cicada shells, obviously very determined in finding one, whatever for Sonic doesn't know.
Yeah, well, in my experience they rarely were.
Sonic pursed his lip once he realized the tone Shadow had at the end. He is trying and he can see that, but Shadow is still adjusting to being respected and treated like an actual person, so it shouldn't come to a surprise Shadow had the fear other humans of Green Hills would be like the ones at GU. And he can't blame him. It's really up to the Wachowskis to show him how different things are here. At least he knows as warming up to Wade somewhat as well. Of course Sonic is dreading the day their mom takes the family to the clinic for health checks, because Shadow will be kicking and screaming, possibly biting people. Again, Sonic doesn't blame him considering what they know of his past, experiments by humans and a lot of implications that left a lot to the imagination. Sonic sighed and chewed his lip, and tapped the ground impatiently, losing himself to wild thoughts, but Shadow misinterpreted that for him being impatient about waiting for the black hedgehog wanting to find a cicada shell.
Sonic, if you want to go run, I'm not stopping you.
He pulled himself up from the ground and dusted his hands, glancing up at a tree with a curious look to him.
Maybe I'll have better luck up there.
Why do you even want a cicada shell?
Sonic exclaimed, but then a wild thought came over him and he let out a gasp.
Wait, I should join. I could have my very own Shedinja.
Shadow slowly turned to give him a confused expression. He went from not being interested to being extremely interested in the span of a few seconds.
Dude, why didn't I think about it before? Let's find that Pokemon.
Sonic said with excitement and zipped ahead against some of the trees to look for one too. What was a Pokemon? Shadow wrinkled his nose, absolutely lost and confused. Did the cicadas have another name he was not aware of? He heard Sonic shout out the name again. He honestly has no idea what he even means. He rolled his eyes and looked up the tree again, taking it in, and was about to use his air shoes to get him up, when he heard a voice.
Shoot boy, you're looking much better.
A old-sounding voice entered his ears and he twisted around in a panic, seeing an older man give him a once-over. He didn't even hear him approach. Darn it, Sonic. Shadow quickly scurried his back against the tree so he didn't leave himself an opening to being attacked, and he let out a vicious snarl. Ears pinned back and hackles went up in warning, stunning the older man who did not move from his spot.
Whoa, Nelly.
The older man put his hands up to show he had nothing in them. His eyes were wide with surprise.
Sorry, didn't mean to surprise you.
Shadow did not respond but kept snarling, high on alert, and took the older man in. He could easily overpower him, that much is certain. He looked that much older than Tom and Wade, maybe closer to the professor's age. He wasn't a threat to Shadow since he could now fight back, without restraints. But the man did not look all that afraid either. If anything, he gave Shadow a calm gazing look, standing still.
No need for the hackles, son, I ain't that dangerous,
he said to the black sapient. Shadow did not believe him. Humans were tricky, and they played dirty. He's not letting his guard down. No, he's not giving this man an edge to attack.
You might want to be careful round here. Don't care if you are alien. If you happen to come across a wild bear, you better not challenge it. Don't need to see that again. The red one certainly gave me a heart attack when he first attempted it.
Red one? Shadow stopped his snarling somewhat, taking in what the man said. Did he mean Knuckles?
Why are you out here alone anyway?
Shadow didn't answer him, and gave him a heated glare. Lips curled, showing his teeth in warning still. The man did not seem fazed at all. If anything, he was looking a bit offended.
Boy, I told you I ain't that dangerous. Not to someone like you.
Shadow's golden red spark started sizzling on his quills, and the man did start to look a little more alarmed. The black sapient wasn't taking any chances, and he let out an animalistic hiss, ready to charge at him to prove his point. But the man stood his ground.
I did not waste my time helping you just to get bit.
He spoke, still oddly calm, but had the same tone Tom would take whenever one of the other sapients were in trouble. Helping him? Shadow was confused.
Whoa, easy.
A blue blur came in between both of them, putting his hands out in a peace gesture to the black hedgehog.
Ah, so he ain't alone. Hey there, Blue Devil.
The older man greeted the blue hedgehog, who gave the human a grin. Shadow blinked. They knew each other? His spark sizzled out.
Hey, Carl. Sorry, we were hunting cicadas. Didn't think I'd see you out here.
Shadow glared at the back of his head. He was hunting cicada shells. He, on the other hand, was trying to find some Shedinja thing.
Didn't think I'd see you either. Though, am I safe to move? He's not gonna bite my ankles, is he?
Shadow growled loud enough at the older man, and Sonic whipped his head around quickly to cause a crack in his neck.
No, he won't. Will you, Shadow?
Shadow nearly throttled him there and then, revealing his name to this stranger. If looks could kill, Sonic would have died on the spot, and he felt a shiver run up him from seeing his expression, so Sonic let out a wary laugh.
Shadow, this is Carl Turner. He alerted Dad and Wade when he found you.
Shadow's eyes widened and quickly looked at the older man, then back at Sonic.
Hope you're finding use out of that blanket. I get it, you're jumpy. Strange planet, strange beings and all that.
He mused, and Shadow felt like digging a hole and dying in it. Sonic quickly could see the wild thoughts Shadow was beginning to have and hurried out a response.
He didn't tell anyone about you. It's just him, Dad, Mom, and Wade. Scout's honor.
That didn't make him feel any better. He had the most unimpressed look on his face and sent daggers to the blue hedgehog, still keeping himself up against the tree. Sonic let out a nervous laugh again.
So, Blue, you teaching him bad habits?
Define bad habits.
Carl snorted at the guilty look upon his face and waved him off.
Setting off my traps or still doing that yourself?
Sonic snickered and shrugged innocently at the older man, but held a mischievous grin.
Keeps you on your toes though, right?
Carl let out a gravelly-like laugh at the blue hedgehog. Obviously, they both were at ease with each other. Shadow felt quite out of place, but he also didn't want to move to gain more attention on himself. But Carl looked to him again and Shadow let out a groan. Attention was given to him regardless of his want.
Still nervous? I don't bite, son.
The black hedgehog doesn't think his bite would hurt at the very least, but Sonic came to the rescue.
Metaphorical. He's not actually gonna bite. Carl, Shadow needs you to be specific. Believe me, I know.
Shadow let out an annoyed growl at the hedgehog. He looked ready to deck him right there and then.
What? I do with you.
Carl chuckled at the blue hedgehog, fully believing him, and waved him off.
Alright, I'm just happy he's looking and feeling better. I was worried.
Shadow frowned and looked at him. He didn't think he was that bad off, but that's several people saying otherwise.
So what good doing out, Carl? Out for a walk?
Not that far from the main path. I saw you skitter about, thought I'd come say hello. Didn't think I'd see our newest resident. Shadow, yes? How you finding it here in Green Hills?
But the black hedgehog said nothing though, and Sonic hurriedly let out a nervous chuckle.
He's shy, so he doesn't talk to people he doesn't fully know yet, Carl. Don't take it to heart.
Shadow growled at him. The blue hedgehog could see Carl didn't believe him over the shy comment but chose to shrug it off and move on.
Carl, you won't tell anyone about him, will you? He's not ready for that.
Sonic mostly said it for one purpose. So Shadow understands Carl won't spread about him being here with other humans. So far Wade hasn't either, but nothing wrong with extra assurance. Carl looked at the black hedgehog. He put his fingers across his chest in a X motion. He could see Shadow had some doubt in his eyes.
Cross my heart. Boy, I haven't told anyone apart from the sheriff and deputy, and they've told no one either. Not until you give the say-so.
Shadow swallowed and rubbed his ring, but he didn't keep his eyes off the new human. He still can't understand these people. It seems Green Hills is as good of a place as Maddie and Tom suggested. Heck, even Knuckles mentioned how different it really is. It's still a lot for him to take in, but he's beginning to believe them more and more.
I'll let you both get back to cicada hunting. Stay out of trouble, you and Shadow. Don't let this one get you in trouble either. He's good at that. It was good seeing both of you.
And he began to walk away, heading towards the main path of the forest. Sonic let out a sigh and flopped himself on the forest floor from the stress of that meeting. He swears he felt like he aged just trying to keep the situation from getting worse, not caring about the leaves that were in his quills. He felt Shadow lean over, so he looked up to see a scowl on his face.
What is a Pokemon?
Not the question Sonic would have thought he'd have asked. Tom and Maddie were surprised that Carl got to meet Shadow and walked away no less, considering how nervous Shadow could be. Sure, he may have snarled and hissed, but that's all he did, so they'll take that as a win. Tom will have to go explain some of the situation to the older man, but it sounds like Carl got the gist of some of it from Sonic. Shadow did not look impressed when he discovered what an actual Pokemon was, even with Tails showing him what Shedinja was based upon, resulting in some bickering between the two hedgehogs. Knuckles merely drank his grape juice, not at all fazed, and Tails grinned with how brave Shadow was getting. Never a dull moment with this family, that's for sure. And with that, 2 weeks on Friday have passed since Shadow was found. It was now Sunday once again. Only a few more days to go until they go visit Knuckles' birth father's grave. But despite the routine, there were times where it was disrupted. That reminder of how bad Shadow's past actually was. In the middle of the night, heading into morning, everyone was sleeping and all was quiet. It was roughly 3:30 in the morning. They heard an ear-piercing scream coming from the attic. Tom and Maddie sat up quickly, very startled, hearts in their throats, and Ozzy let out a few barks. Not knowing what it was, both looked to each other and ran up the attic stairs quick as they could, thinking someone was injured. The scream was one of agony. But when they got there, no one was injured that they could see, just startled kids. But then they realized the scream came from Shadow, who was curled up on his mattress gasping in what sounded like pain. Hands tight on his covers so hard they had ripped. His body twisted about, as if he was fighting an invisible enemy that held him down. Knuckles was quick to react and was beside the black hedgehog, trying to edge him out of it without startling him. Sonic quickly had his arms around the startled fox, who looked petrified. All of them had their fur bristled in all directions from that agonizing scream, none registering the emerald's glow in its box, trying to reach the black hedgehog's nightmare and ease his suffering, but it was far too great of a memory for it to work. Knuckles was unintentionally zapped by his golden red sparks, sending painful electricity through him again, and he hissed out in pain. He quickly put his hand out to Tom and Maddie, telling them to back off so they don't get hit with that. He had to take the bullet. The risk of Shadow hurting his family were getting high, so he called out his name and reached forward, putting his hand on his shoulder. He was drenched in sweat, expression filled with pain, and he let out another scream. It broke the two humans' hearts, with Sonic covering Tails' sensitive fox ears and kept him pressed against the blue hedgehog's chest, and out of viewing eye from the black hedgehog's nightmare.
Shadow, you aren't there anymore. Shadow.
Knuckles frantically called out to him again, and shook him as gently as he could. He cried out,
Don't. I'm begging you. Please.
Knuckles pursed his lip and had a grim expression, as did his parents. He shook him again. Shadow's eyes snapped open and the echidna got the surprise of his life. He should have kept clear of his arms. Shadow had twisted his body and elbowed the echidna's throat. His arm then went against the echidna's throat, simultaneously pinning him down on the ground hard. With a loud thump, startling both Tom and Maddie, who cried out in alarm to see Knuckles. Knuckles, of all people, being pinned, being choked. Shadow snarled at the echidna. His eyes were slits and he panted loudly, squeezing his neck further with his arm. Knuckles choked, from the sheer force Shadow was as putting on him. It wasn't easy to wind the echidna, but boy was the black sapient actually doing it. It felt like he had two hands on the echidna's throat. The red sapient didn't want to injure him because Shadow wasn't conscious at all. He was doing this out of instinct. He was still asleep.
Shadow.
He winced out, but no reaction other than the snarl. His eyes were alight, the fire inside of a ruby gem. But the glow of green couldn't be missed this time. Knuckles saw it get brighter in intensity. Stop. He felt the Master Emerald's intent wash into him, the rhythmic hum as if it was trying to drown out the noise in Shadow's mind. And he called out Shadow's name again with desperation. The emerald was trying to prevent the echidna being harmed any further. He reached out and gripped the black hedgehog tightly. And with that, Shadow gasped sharply, pulling away from the echidna quickly in one motion, short of breath, and his body was shaking. Knuckles sat up and rubbed his throat from the released pressure. Shadow finally coming to, sparks halting. His eyes were tear-filled and he settled on the echidna and his breath hitched, looking lost. He saw the red sapient rub his throat and he looked at his ever-shaking hands, connecting the dots. He looked incredibly ashamed and overwhelmed as he shook miserably. He let out a whine once he saw the other residents in the room. Both the humans crouched and reached out to him, but Shadow flinched violently away, pushing himself in one swift motion up against the beam of the attic.
Oh, Blackberry. Are you okay?
She felt it was such a silly question, but she had to ask. Shadow wouldn't look at her. He looked at his shaking hands. His ears were pinned back. She looked to Tom, who bit his lip. Since Shadow was getting more comfortable with both of them, she decided to reach out while Tom checked their oldest.
I am fine, Father. Shadow needs you more.
Knuckles rubbed his throat, obviously more concerned with the black hedgehog than himself. But Tom helped him up slowly, of course.
I know that, Bud. I'm still the father here. I'm gonna be concerned regardless. Your mom has him. Let me see to you.
He muttered quietly. He was concerned for Shadow, but he was also concerned for his sons. Shadow needed more than just a father here. He needed a mother. Sonic kept Tails' ears covered and facing his chest in an embrace, watching the scene with concern.
Knux?
The blue hedgehog gently called to his other brother.
It's fine, I am fine.
You want to talk about it?
Maddie scooted herself over a little as Shadow continued not to look at them.
No.
He sounded hoarse, but then his eyes widened, and he began feeling his quills, checking to feel as if they were still there. Maddie put her hand over her mouth, and her eyes watered. He didn't need to say, she knew, as did Knuckles, and Tom, just from the way he was actively feeling his own quills. He kept shaking. Sonic knew too. He swallowed the sickness that began to rise in him. Maddie reached out slowly and he tensed. His breathing was loud.
Let me help you, baby.
You can't.
He whispered. His hands shook still, bringing them back to his view. He stared at them, like he couldn't believe what he had done to Knuckles. But she was undeterred. She reached out and touched him very gently, earning a growl, and he flinched, bracing himself, but he didn't push her otherwise. Maddie pulled herself even closer and hugged him. wrapping her arms around his head in an embrace and held him close. His fur was wet from the sweat, but she didn't care. He needed this, if he knew it or not. And she stayed like that, embracing this poor kid. Everyone else was silent, so they didn't overwhelm Shadow more than he already was. He's had nightmares before, but they never got as bad as this. The first time it happened, he woke himself up with a jolt, which in turn woke Knuckles since he was a light sleeper. He got up and went to sit outside, refusing to go back to sleep and refusing to go into it either. Knuckles and Tom stayed up with him the first time and watched the sun rise into the sky, all three just sitting there quietly. The familiar hum also tried to smooth him, trying to calm him, sending its own intent like a warm embrace, just like Maddie was doing currently. Shadow didn't return the hug, but he shut his eyes tightly, trying to keep back the tears.
You want to go back to bed?
She muttered out quietly, keeping her arms around the black hedgehog who swallowed.
No.
Tom had gotten up and sat with both Sonic and Tails, checking in on both and whispered to ask if they were all right. Knuckles did the same, deciding to check on their youngest and if anything to let the kid see he was unharmed, even if he felt like he's gonna end up with a bruise. It was then decided Tails would sleep with Tom, so the father of three picked the yellow fox up and made his way down the attic stairs and into their bedroom, so Shadow didn't have an audience. Sonic swallowed the lump but decided to follow his dad and let their mom bring the black sapient some peace. And she sat there, arms around the black hedgehog who still had no reaction. His breathing had calmed. From Knuckles' angle he looked completely exhausted. Knuckles felt that. It didn't look like they were going to get sleep. Shadow didn't want to. Not after that. The glow of green kept flickering around the room, so Knuckles went over to the box and lifted out the Master Emerald, taking it over, and he sat on the other side of the hedgehog, his hands holding the emerald, laying it in between his legs and Shadow's, and the energy it sent out was smoothing, relaxing. Knuckles felt that envelop over his body and let out a content sigh. His throat felt less achy as well. All 3+ emeralds stayed like that throughout the hours in the morning. Tom had managed to get Tails back to sleep. He cradled the young fox between himself and Ozzy being at the bottom of the bed where their feet would be, with Sonic on the other side of the kit. The only two residents getting any sleep that morning were Ozzy and Tails. Tom couldn't sleep out of concern for his kids, and Sonic couldn't either, because of that scream that was echoing in his head. Gunn certainly had a lot to answer for. By the time the clock chimed at 10 o'clock in the morning, it was oddly quiet at the Wachowski household, mostly because Knuckles would have been up and patrolled, Ozzy would have been on his walk by now, and the breakfast would have been served. No one had the energy for the normal routine that morning. Maddie had managed to coax Shadow back to his mattress, but he was pretty lethargic and did not go back to sleep, or respond much to her or Knuckles, his mind clouded and lost in his own world. The echidna still had the Master Emerald nearby him. The light was dim, but it tried to comfort the numbed hedgehog. He did utter apologizes to the echidna, who told him to stop it. She finally went down the attic and gestured for Tom to start with getting cereal for the kids' breakfast. No one wanted to eat, but they had to in order to keep their strength up. Tom groaned and downed his second cup of coffee, wanting the caffeine to wake him up, and he rubbed his face. Knuckles eventually came down to get a drink for the black sapient, and Tom choked on his coffee, the heat of the sting burning his chest and throat, seeing his son's neck for the first time. Maddie spotted it too and offered an ice pack or a bandage. It was purple and blue already, and it wasn't exactly small either. The force Shadow put on him was enough to look like he strangled the echidna with 2 hands. Sonic froze when he saw it, and he rubbed his own throat from seeing it. Knuckles waved them off with a grunt and said it looked worse than it felt. Knuckles now understood what Sonic meant with Shadow's strength. It was incredible, and that was him being unconscious. But it looks like it'll be up to the echidna to train him in order to control it, because the last thing he wants is his family suffering something similar. Sonic was incredibly lucky his jaw did not get broken that time. The black sapient didn't mean to hurt him, but he still can't afford his mother and father, or even Tails being in the vicinity of that power, because it may have ended up a lot worse. He filled Shadow's cup and made his way back up the stairs into the attic. Sonic played about with his spoon absent-mindedly, while Tails munched away slowly. Maddie and Tom didn't talk either, just sipping away at their caffeine addiction in order to wake up. Tom tried to keep the anger down, but it's ate away at him the entire day. The black hedgehog oozed with trauma and it really bothered the father of three. He wasn't mad at Shadow, he was furious at GU. And all the things they've done, the wild thoughts and the guessing mind games that played about in his head, add the fact that his quills were blunted at some point in his life, added that to the list. There was once Sonic had a large piece of gum stuck in his quills, zero idea how he caused that, so they decided to shave that part out since scissors weren't cutting it. But they unfortunately found out the hard way that a hedgehog's quills could be sensitive, overly so. Maddie had hoped being Mobian meant it was different, and to be fair they were new parents at the time. Unfortunately Sonic wasn't aware of it until they attempted, and the agonizing scream that followed made them quickly realize that Sonic was in a lot of pain for quite some time, his quill nerves were harmed and thus they never attempted again. It was unintentional harm and both showered Sonic extra love and apologies. So when Shadow felt his own quills, checking if they were there, was enough for the parents to realize the truth. Sonic knew he must have, but he kept quiet, obviously not wanting to voice the horror. If a small section was enough to harm Sonic, how much pain was Shadow in when they done so? Because he felt every part of his quills, meaning they blunted large chunks at a time. And what for? Other than humiliation? Or was it punishment for something?
Will Shadow be okay? That nightmare sounded awful.
Tails' voice cut through Tom's steaming clockwork mind, and both of them looked at their youngest. Maddie pursed her lip, trying to come up with answers she didn't really know herself. Yeah, all her kids had something tragic happen and they've had nightmares too, but not quite like Shadow. Sonic had to be left behind by his guardian, on a planet without someone to look after him for years. Knuckles buried his tribe, and now they know he witnessed his father's death, good lord. And Tails was abandoned at a younger age, bullied because of his mutation. And now they have Shadow, who was kept as a guinea pig, prisoner of government-funded maniacs, who also lost his beloved sister. Green Hills was special in many ways. It also attracted traumatic kids in a way they should not be surprised, but of course they keep being surprised.
It's gonna take a while, baby. I'm sorry that scared you.
Maddie muttered out and reached her arm around the kit, stroking his fringe with loving affection. They had to remember, as mature as Tails was, he was still the youngest out them all. Sonic reached over to him and patted his hand in assurance.
What did they do to him?
Tails whispered, making Sonic cringe. He was too smart. He's young, and for once Sonic was cursing his intelligence, because he really doesn't want the same wild thoughts to enter the fox's mind like it seemed to be doing for everyone else.
Tails, don't entertain that. Please. I can't have the guessing on you either.
Tom sat his mug down and went behind the blue sapient, wrapping his arms around him in an effort to comfort him.
Dad.
No, Sonic. I'm here. Don't push me away, son.
Tom kissed the top of Sonic's head. Sonic swallowed and leaned into his dad's embrace. Then Sonic bit his lip.
I just wish I knew how to help him. So he doesn't have. It's never gonna leave him, is it?
No, but he can heal. We just have to get him help. We are helping him. It's just going to take time.
Tails pressed himself against Maddie, both sapients going quiet. Tom and Maddie thought they were doing good. From not having kids to being sudden parents to Sonic, then the other two sapients that entered their lives. Kids wasn't something they were talking about at the time, and they wouldn't change what they have now. They love being parents to these alien kids. But with Shadow? It's completely new territory. It reminded them of how Knuckles took to adjusting. He, however, was more brutally honest about his past. Not to say Shadow wasn't, but he's quite hesitant, and for good reason. He wants a connection, he wants to trust. But how can you do that when you've been harmed half the time? The boy was full of contradictions. For one so young, he's gone through hell and back. Tom and Maddie are surprised he's even sane at all. Tom noticed Ozzy wasn't with them. He must be with Shadow and Knuckles. The retriever likely wanted to comfort the black sapient in his own way, and dogs were quite good at that. The kitchen was silent, all four recipients processing different thoughts and feelings, but all felt the same tiredness. Then an idea struck Tom.
I'm not wasting a Sunday. Shadow's been mostly cooped up in the house yet, so why don't we do something with him besides game night? So we can either go to the lake and show him fishing, or we can go out in the car and show him the sights. Maybe have a picnic in either plan?
He ignored the lack of energy from the other two kids. Sonic and Tails looked to each other. Both were tired, but the idea of not just wasting away in sadness sounded like a good idea. Maddie hummed and rubbed her face tiredly, but it did sound better than feeling sorry for themselves, and would help keep Shadow from doing the same.
Should we ask Knuckles and Shadow? Or do we surprise them?
I think surprise would be better. Maddie, let's get food ready.
Sonic wouldn't mind showing Shadow more of Green Hills, but with how tired Tom looks, it may be best to just try the fishing part at the lake for now.
What about just doing the fishing? I don't think he's ever fished. You could take him on the rowboat and I can comfortably sit at the shore.
Tom chuckled at Sonic's thought process.
You alright with that, Tails?
Fishing it is. Nice day for it too.
Knuckles was surprised when he was told, as was Shadow. The only difference is Shadow didn't look all that enthusiastic about it. Might be because he was just as tired as the rest of them. But they weren't wasting a day, so they dragged the tired black hedgehog to the lake with them, with Ozzy at the heel. Maddie began to set up the picnic and Tom began to set up the fishing rods. Shadow recognized the lake though, and may have casually pointed out he doesn't want to drown this time, gaining their attention. Maddie wanted the story. Sonic gulped and started to look sheepish.
Nothing, he's being delusional from lack of sleep.
Sonic waved the ebony sapient off, who looked quite offended.
You fell in, I had to get you out. And as soon as we made it near the shallow end, you sped off with enough force a small tsunami took me back under.
Shadow shot him an exasperated look and Sonic shot back a glare. So Tom put his hands on his hips and gave the one person who wouldn't try edge his way out. Knuckles. Knuckles froze under his father's stare, in the middle of helping set the paper plates, debating if he should reveal the confidential information Sonic entrusted. Alas, his father came first.
Sonic nearly drowned both of them.
You are such a tattletale. I can't believe you ratted me out.
You are the one who informed me, brother. I was asked by the patriarch of our family. I cannot lie.
He didn't say a word.
His eyes spoke loud enough. You just cannot speak the language.
He set the paper plates out. Tails giggled, being unhelpful to the situation and wasn't willing to try.
Sonic, a word.
Tom pointed to the spot next to him. Being a parent never ended and Sonic groaned, knowing the lecture he was about to receive, and quite ironic it happened to be at the lake where Tom first lectured him, and made his way over. Maddie gave Shadow the once-over.
When were you and Sonic going to say about that?
Shadow blinked and returned her gaze, red eyes filled with confusion.
Were we supposed to? I was under the impression that you knew about the outing?
Sonic said something about it, but he never mentioned about the two of you almost drowning. Shadow, we need to know stuff like that, baby. It's our job as parents to make sure our kids come back alive, safe and healthy. Mistakes happen and can be learned, but not if you drown.
Shadow hummed and ran a hand over his quills in thought. He never considered that, especially since Sonic couldn't swim.
I will inform you should Sonic go at light speed and trip into the water again. To be fair, the geese had a riot with him. They kept pecking at him later in the day. They honked like they were laughing and pecked because he offended them.
That made Tails giggle more just picturing the sight. Knuckles chuckled at the tail sitting next to Maddie on the picnic quilt.
Worry not, mother. I gave him a stern warning and a suitable punishment. In the future I will inform both of you.
But Maddie was processing what she just said to Shadow. She didn't just say kid, she said kids. She referred to him as a kid of theirs. Her heart beat loudly against her chest and she swallowed. She and Tom were attached, sure, but now? She had to confront the idea she was seeing Shadow as a family member. It wasn't a bad thing, sure, but how would Shadow feel about it? Sonic came back obviously not thrilled at being lectured by his father, but he knows it was done out of concern. He gestured for Knuckles and Tails to skip rocks with him, see who could get it the furthest.
Shadow, do you want to go and fish on the rowboat or at the shore edge?
Is there a difference?
Just whatever is more comfortable, bud.
Shadow ended up picking the shore edge, not at all ready to bother the geese that was further away at the lake. It was also because Ozzy wasn't that far from the black hedgehog, nudging into his leg asking for pets, and fully aware of how Shadow felt that day. He was convinced of that. So Tom set up the rods and showed Shadow how it worked, by leading with example and cast his line impressively far in. He stood still for a few minutes, then sat the fishing pole against a metal hanger. So when a fish gets his line, he'll be aware of it. Shadow tried to follow his example but ended up going backwards instead, falling flat on his back and landed on the ground with a thump. He chuckled at the dazed expression on the hedgehog, not understanding quite how that happened. Ozzy didn't help and began to lick the black sapient, who cringed and tried lightly shoving Ozzy away, still not at all fond of the slobbery kisses from the retriever.
Ozzy, go kiss someone else.
Tom grinned and whistled, Ozzy understanding the command, and got off the black hedgehog and over to Tom. He leaned over and held his hand out for the sapient to take, but Shadow pushed himself up and grumbled, Tom chuckling away.
Ozzy just likes you. He's simple-minded that way.
The black hedgehog grabbed the rod again and got up, so Tom kneeled beside him, and Shadow didn't tense up. A win for Tom's book. He still had times where he tensed, if his line of sight couldn't see either human. Luckily Tom had his arm out in his view. Tom gently reached to his wrist and held it gently.
You want to sweep it behind your shoulder like this.
He demonstrated by lifting Shadow's arm, and the black sapient allowed him to do.
Then as it reaches the back, you want to cast it forward quickly, while you point towards your target. Then release the line as you do. Yeah, like that. Oh wait, let me put the bait on.
Shadow was definitely fascinated. It was harder than it looked. Tom pulled away and he tried again without his guidance, just mimicking him best he could, and kept practicing the swing of it. He eventually got it and set off his line. Not as far as Tom's, maybe because of the height difference, but he managed to get in the water and his face lit up, quite happy with experience. May have helped Tom cheered for him, but he won't admit it.
So it's just a waiting game?
Shadow watched the line, seeing if it bopped into the water, but both were still.
Yeah. Sonic finds it quite boring because you could be here for hours without a bite, but the quietness is what makes it enjoyable.
Shadow looked at him, then back at the water.
Nothing wrong with quietness. He's just hyperactive.
Tom chuckled and sat on the folded chair he and Maddie packed.
Does he drain your social battery?
I'm not like the one of those rechargeable ones in the Fox's flashlight. I'm pretty sure I have flesh.
Shadow gave him a confused look and Tom laughed.
It's an expression, Shadow. We had to tell Knuckles the same thing when he first came here.
You have a saying for everything.
You excited for Mario Party tonight? If you're up for it. Wade's been looking forward to it all week. Don't pick Yoshi though, that's who he always goes for.
I heard from Tails that Mario Party is known to cause divorces and destroy family relationships with arguments.
He stated with a matter of fact. And Tom snorted.
I mean, it can be a bit chaotic, yeah, but I wouldn't go as far as to say it causes divorces.
It got quiet between the both of them, with Shadow's ears twitching hearing the other three sapients with Maddie skipping stones further away. He glanced at their direction and saw Knuckles overthrow his rock. It didn't hit the water but dented itself into a tree. He could hear Sonic rile Echidna up. Tom gained his attention as he saw the human make some movement in picking up a stick before tossing it further ahead in one direction, and Shadow wondered why, until he saw Ozzy race for it. So it was for the retriever to have some fun.
Are you liking it here?
Tom hesitantly opened his can because of the crushed pressure side and held it out so it didn't spray everywhere. Shadow glanced at their fishing lines again, see if there was any bites, but there was none. Shadow pursed his lip, trying to think of a way how to word it.
It's interesting. I've never had so much.
Not even on Mobius.
Tom picked up the stick Ozzy brought back and tossed it again, and Shadow went deathly quiet. Yeah, he just stepped into something, didn't he?
Well, I'm happy you get to experience this, bud. And I'm even more happy you get to with us.
But Shadow remained quiet, and Tom sighed. The walls were back up, weren't they? He leaned forward to check on the line, still no movement.
You confuse me. You and Maddie. Always wanting to talk about things, try understand and just... I can't wrap my mind around it. I've only met two good humans in my life, but you both are certainly... Why?
Tom took in what Shadow was saying. It was unlike him to personally say such a thing from what they knew about him. Two good humans, huh? Another thing to ask this hedgehog. Tom rubbed his neck.
It doesn't cost much to be kind, Shadow. I will never understand what you had to go through, but... I can try to, but... I'd like to think if it was the other way round, you'd have done the same for someone. So they wouldn't go through any more misfortune.
You all have way too much faith in me. You don't know that.
But you don't know that either, do you? But I know it's only been a few weeks. But from what I've observed, you just need to experience this side of life to see the way we do things. I'm not going to let someone else hurt you. Not while I can help it.
Shadow bit his lip that time and he swallowed, rubbing his ring, and looked out onto the lake. He could feel the emotions rise within him.
I'm not even family. That's why you confuse me.
Tom blinked and he opened his mouth and closed it again. He took a deep breath and got up from his chair, and the black sapient tensed out of reflex, expecting Tom to strike him for being insolent, for asking too much questions. After all, that's what the scientists and soldiers did back at the metal room. When they felt he was misbehaving like a wild animal, he got hit, punched, and pulled. But Tom didn't do that. He crouched next to the black hedgehog, who flinched away, and Tom paused but pressed on.
You don't need to be family for us to care, Shadow. That's not how kindness or love works. Comes in many forms. And what you've gone through, you don't need to carry that burden alone anymore.
Shadow rubbed his ring still, wishing the fish would actually bite the line, and he kept silent. He doesn't know what to say to that, but Maria would have really liked. No, loved Tom and Maddie. They've had gotten along, that much he's quite sure. He had a little smile on that thought, thinking of the ways the Wachowskis would have been with his sister. If they were like that with the black sapient, Maria would have gotten something similar, had she been there with him. Tom reached and took the hedgehog's hands into his, and pressed on.
Let us help you, bud. No strings attached, not with us. From now on, we'll be here for you no matter what happens.
Shadow gazed into Tom's blue ones, not believing this human. This kind human. The only people he ever considered kind was Maria and the professor. Shadow let out a choke-like sound, so Tom pressed his head against Shadow's, like he had done before. It felt so comforting. A foreign promise that was stolen long ago from his life. These people, will he ever get used to it? The connection, attachment. He told himself he wouldn't be attached to this kind, strange family, but he has. Still, doubt lingers in his mind that they could just be saying that. It's hard for him to understand, to accept. That ever-growing fear, what if he loses one of them? Just like he lost Maria and Professor Gerald. Tom gave him a small smile. He knew it in his own heart. He's attached to this strange kid. And yet, he doesn't regret it. Not if it helps Shadow in the long run. Shadow is a part of Green Hills now, a part of their family. It's his home now. And he's gonna make sure it stays that way. Shadow looked, seeing one of their lines bop in the water, and his eyes widened with fascination. He pointed at the line. Tom's heart ached seeing such a simple thing as fishing light up this kid's world. But he couldn't dwell on that. He quickly went to Shadow's fishing rod and gestured for him to do the same. Ozzy had come over with a big new stick, wondering what happening.
Oh, well done, bud.
He put his hand on Shadow's back to support as the black hedgehog lifted his rod.
Okay, now we reel it in. But we gotta make sure it doesn't break the line with too much tugging.
And so Tom demonstrated, helping the black sapient reel in the fish, and Shadow's body began to radiate with excitement at his first ever fish that he caught. There was a fight, some tugging with encouragement from Tom and Ozzy, whose tail wagged against the hedgehog's shoe. And right there on the hook was Shadow's first fish, a trout. He may have let out a sound of excitement, and an unintentional tail wag that killed Tom's poor heart.
Look at that, good job, Shadow.
What do I do with it?
He looked at the sheriff, who patted his shoulder.
You can release it back if you'd like. Or you could eat it for dinner. Knuckles did it, he considered it hunting.
Shadow scrunched up his nose. He doesn't want to eat the poor fish, even if it's good for the brain. So release it is.
Hold on, let me take a picture.
Tom pulled himself back and Shadow was about to protest, but the father of three took out his phone thing that Tails tried to explain what it was and snapped a picture of the black sapient, who was quite sure he was blushing.
Whoa, you actually caught one.
Shadow picked up Sonic's voice, and right there, like the wind itself, was the blue hedgehog at the other side. Tails and Knuckles joined in, as did Maddie, to see what the commotion was about, and were happy for the black hedgehog.
A mighty catch. Well done, my sworn brother. Are we having it for dinner?
Knuckles patted his back a little too eagerly, sending the ebony hedgehog stumbling.
No.
Shadow cried out. After showing everyone his catch, and had to dodge Knuckles from taking it, both him and Tom released the fish back into the water. It was then the humans decided to break for some food, and Tom took back his line while the sapients, Maddie and Ozzy, went to the picnic quilt, began to eat the packed meals. Tom snuck another picture while no one was looking, and smiled warmly at it. Another keeper. He put his phone away and joined his ever-growing family, with Tails explaining how he won the stone toss against his brothers and would gladly show Shadow how to do it too. Tom wrapped his arm around Maddie as he listened to all four kids talk over each other. The morning may have not started off well, but it made way for a new experience for Shadow.